Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung, you felt it the first time. Small shift in the air, a word twisted in your favor, a promise left unkept. You thought you were safe, your trust carefully measured, your heart guarded, but it happened anyway. Like a shadow creeping over a sunlit room, subtle and silent, it took root. The person you confided in, the one you offered kindness to without hesitation, suddenly moved in ways that betrayed your expectation. Not with a shout or a crash, but a whisper, a suggestion, a slight that made you question yourself. You wondered if you had imagined it, if you were overreacting, but deep down, the unease gnawed at you. Your instinct knew the truth. This is the sting of subtle exploitation. It isn't just you. No one escapes it. Everyone, at some point, experiences this quiet theft of trust. The colleague who takes credit for your work, the friend who only calls when they need something, the partner who manipulates your guilt to serve their comfort. This isn't weakness, it's the human condition. Jung understood that the shadows of our interactions mirror our own unexamined spaces. When you are generous, open, or emotionally available, it can attract those who sense a vulnerability. That's not shameful, that's a reality, and realizing it doesn't make you cynical, it makes you conscious. You are not alone in this quiet, aching recognition. There is a lineage of souls who have felt it, each carrying the first taste of betrayal, each learning to navigate the hidden currents around them. The danger comes when you ignore it. When you pretend the world is always as fair as your intentions, the manipulation burrows deeper. Every unnoticed slight, every tolerated transgression leaves a mark. These aren't just bruises, they are fractures in your sense of self. Over time, they erode boundaries, warp perception, and leave you vulnerable to more calculated intrusions. The human psyche, if left unchecked, accumulates this invisible weight, shaping not just how others treat you, but how you treat yourself. Your sense of reality, your confidence, even your ability to trust your own judgment, all are quietly altered. This is why awareness matters. This is why you must see the shadow before it stretches across your life, before it becomes a constant presence in your decisions, in your heart, in your quiet moments of reflection. The moment someone crosses you is not just an event, it is a mirror. It shows you the areas you've left exposed, the places where your vigilance was absent, the corners of your heart you assumed were safe. And yet, within this painful truth lies a paradoxical opportunity, clarity. The first sting of betrayal is a call to consciousness. It is an invitation to step out of naive trust and into deliberate awareness. It asks you to meet reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. The shadow is not the enemy, it is the teacher, and every encounter with exploitation, subtle or overt, is a lesson in discerning the difference between kindness and naivety, between generosity and blind surrender. You do not have to harden, but you must awaken, to feel the sting and recognize it for what it is. A signal, not a sentence. A signpost pointing to where your energy, your attention, your care must be recalibrated. To acknowledge it is to reclaim a measure of power that was momentarily lost, and to stand in the world with eyes wide open, heart intact, but boundaries firm. Trust wisely, guard fiercely, and let awareness be your shield. People will do anything, even harm you, if they believe it serves their comfort. Carl Jung, you step onto the glass bridge of trust, thinking it's strong, thinking it's safe. Your kindness is a currency, freely given, unguarded, radiant. You smile, you listen, you care, and then it cracks beneath you. The person you confided in twists your words, borrows your generosity, leaves your heart dangling. Kindness is not weakness, but it can be mistaken for it. In modern life, it happens every day. A colleague who leans on your work, praising themselves while you carry the weight quietly. A friend who calls only when in need, vanishing when you seek support. A partner who interprets your empathy as license to bend the rules. You wonder if you misread the signals, but deep down you know the truth. Jung called this projection. The shadow we do not see in ourselves is mirrored in the actions of others. The glass shatters, and the reflection is unmistakable. You are not weak. You are awake too late to the illusion of trust, and that awakening is the first step towards seeing clearly. False love is the quietest predator. It arrives as warmth, as attention, as comfort, but it is hollow at its core. Someone may say, "I care about you," while every action serves their self-interest. A partner who claims intimacy but manipulates jealousy. A friend who consoles yet measures your responses, calculating how much you will give before pulling back. The affection is a mask, a cloak comb with subtle strings, making you feel connected while they harvest your emotional energy. Social media shows us the perfect lives of those we admire. Smiles, trips, celebrations, but behind the lens, the interactions are strategic, curated. False comfort lulls you into compliance. It whispers that you are safe when you are being shaped, measured, and used. Jung warned of this seduction. The persona, the mask we wear, attracts others who wish to exploit what is visible while ignoring the hidden truths of your being. Familiarity is the sweetest trap. Someone you've known for years, someone who has shared your laughter and your silence, can betray in ways strangers never could. Patterns repeat because the psyche craves the known, even when known brings harm. A coworker who has observed your patience now presses limits. A childhood friend who knows your insecurities nudges them strategically. The more they understand your heart, the more precise the exploitation. The psychological principle is brutal yet simple. What is familiar bypasses skepticism. The mind trusts before it tests. It allows subtle control to creep in unnoticed until you are caught in the web, wondering how you could have failed to see it coming. Awareness is the shield. Recognition of the pattern is the first line of defense. Every familiar exploit begins as an invisible thread, slowly tightening. The illusions are everywhere. Trust can be a bridge or a trap. Affection can be a cloak or a dagger. Familiarity can be a comfort or a snare. To awaken is to see beyond the mask, to discern the shadows behind the smiles, the motives beneath the words, the intentions behind the touch. Real connection demands clarity. Real love respects boundaries. Real comfort nourishes. It does not drain. You are not blind, not naive, not failing. You have simply been shown the world as it truly is. The mirror is harsh, but it reflects the truth you must carry forward. Awareness is your weapon, insight into your armor, and the courage to step away from your liberation. See beyond the mask, trust your insight, and walk free of illusions. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. You never noticed it at first. The patterns were subtle, invisible to the conscious eye. A friend who always demanded more than they gave, a partner who triggered your deepest insecurities, a colleague who relied on your diligence while offering nothing in return. At the time it seemed like a coincidence, but the mind remembers, the body remembers, the unhealed parts of you, the abandoned child, the neglected self, the insecure heart, are etched into your reactions, your choices, your tolerance. Jung understood that what is denied within seeks expression outside. Your unprocessed pain silently shaped the circumstances around you, drawing in those who could exploit it. every repeated disappointment, every subtle betrayal, every manipulation is not merely the world acting against you. It is the reflection of your own inner shadow, the parts you have refused to face, mirrored back in human form. You are not weak. You are unknowingly magnetic, guided by invisible threads of unresolved wounds that pull certain people and situations toward you again and again. The shadow is not an abstract idea. It is the unseen puppeteer behind every decision you make. It is the part of yourself you hide, deny, or despise, the anger you suppress, the need for approval you cannot admit, the fear of rejection you bury in silence. Every time you give too much, forgive too easily, or accept disrespect, the shadow whispers its influence. It nudges you toward the familiar, even if familiar carries harm. Imagine a theater where the puppet master is invisible. The strings are subtle, almost imperceptible. You move, you speak, you act, believing it is free will. Yet the shadow guides you, steering choices toward patterns you have unconsciously repeated for years. Recognizing the shadow does not justify blame, nor does it excuse exploitation. It illuminates why the same dynamics reappear, why some relationships feel like déjà vu, why some wounds are stubbornly recurring. Awareness of the puppeteer is the first step in reclaiming autonomy. Wounds act like magnets, pulling in those who can exploit them. A child who is often ignored grows up drawn to people who need constant attention, even if it is draining or manipulative. A person who is shamed becomes vulnerable to those who wield guilt as a weapon. A heart betrayed repeatedly seeks validation in predictable places, unwittingly repeating trauma until awareness intervenes. In modern life, this is everywhere. The coworker who pushes your patience knows your past tolerance. The friend who manipulates your empathy senses the unhealed vulnerability within you. The romantic partner who twists your need for connection, exploits the space left raw by childhood neglect. These magnetic forces are not random. They are the shadows of your own psyche calling patterns into being. The more unconscious the wound, the stronger the pull. Until you confront it, you will remain in cycles of being used, betrayed, or overlooked. Yet, there is hope embedded in this truth. Seeing the shadow does not condemn you, it empowers you. The first step is reflection, identifying the repeated patterns without shame. Ask yourself why certain people or situations appear consistently. Why certain wounds flare at predictable triggers. Why familiar pain is drawn toward you like iron filings to a magnet. The second step is acknowledgement, naming the shadow, admitting its influence and understanding its origin. Childhood abandonment, parental criticism, early betrayals, these are not your fault, but their echoes shape your adult interactions. Recognizing the shadow allows you to distinguish between instinctive reaction and conscious choice, between magnetized attraction and deliberate selection. Healing begins with awareness. You must meet your shadow, not as an enemy, but as a guide. Each encounter with manipulation, each repeated wound, each echo of past pain is a signpost pointing toward the areas of your psyche that require attention, integration, and care. The unhealed self does not merely suffer, it draws suffering to itself. The moment you see the pattern, name the influence, and reclaim your choices, the magnetic pull weakens. The shadows no longer control you, they inform you. You can step forward, cautious but empowered, no longer blindly attracted to harm, no longer a puppet of unprocessed wounds. Face your shadow, honor your wounds, and reclaim your power. You are what you do, not what you suffer. Carl Jung. You look in the mirror, and the face staring back feels unfamiliar. Every compliment you once believed now sounds hollow. Every decision you trusted yourself to make seems tainted. The betrayal has carved cracks in your identity, and the inner voice whispers relentlessly, "Was it you who failed? Was it your fault?" Shame wraps around you like a fog, thick and suffocating. It tells you that your worth is measured by how others treat you, that your judgment is flawed, that your trust was a mistake. Even your memories feel contaminated. Laughter now carries a shadow. Smiles are tinged with doubt. Conversations replay endlessly, each misstep magnified. You feel small. Not because you are weak, but because your sense of self has splintered under the weight of exploitation. Modern life compounds this fracture. Social media shows the effortless success of peers while you replay your own perceived failures. The cinematic reality is this: identity is not static. It is a fragile mosaic, and when trust is broken, pieces scatter. To feel the emptiness is not failure. It is the human response to violation. Isolation creeps in quietly. You reach out and find silence, or worse, misunderstanding. Friends offer advice that misses the depth of your pain. Family sees only the surface, expecting resilience where only raw nerves exist. You drift through a storm-tossed sea, waves of confusion crashing over you. Each interaction feels perilous. Every conversation carries the risk of judgment. Betrayal has a way of severing connection before you even realize it. It creates a vacuum where your emotional energy should flow, but instead it pools into anxiety, fear, and mistrust. You may try to anchor yourself in routine, but every familiar mooring feels shaky. In modern terms, it is the subtle loneliness of scrolling through a connected world while feeling utterly unseen. The cinematic image is stark: a small boat in endless night, no stars to guide you, only the distant echo of voices that once mattered. This isolation intensifies the wound, making every day a psychological battle for stability. The spiral begins silently, unnoticed at first. One betrayal leads to another, not because the world is crueler, but because the unaddressed fracture in your psyche shapes your perception, your decisions, your relationships. Doubt multiplies. You question intentions where none exist. You pull back from opportunities, afraid to be used again. Every choice becomes weighed by fear. Every word measured for safety. The inner dialogue is relentless. Will I be enough? Can I trust myself? Will this happen again? Unhealed exploitation compounds, creating layers of mistrust and hypervigilance that distort reality. The cinematic metaphor is suffocating, a house of mirrors, reflections bending, multiplying, each one a distorted echo of your fractured self. Friends appear as critics, love appears as manipulation, success appears as fleeting and fragile. Decision-making falters, self-expression shrinks. You feel trapped in a psychological labyrinth of your own design, and yet the spiral is not infinite. Recognition is the key. Seeing the pattern allows the first crack of light, the possibility of reclaiming identity, and the start of deliberate repair. Even in the depths, you have not disappeared. The pieces are scattered, but not lost. The collapse is painful. Yes, but it is a necessary force, breaking the false solidity you clung to, exposing the cracks that demand attention. Each moment of self-doubt is a call to reflection. Each pang of isolation is a signal to reconnect with your own inner compass. Each cycle of fear and mistrust is an opportunity to identify the patterns that have hijacked your sense of self. The cinematic truth: from rubble comes reconstruction, from chaos comes conscious choice. You can gather the fragments, examine them without judgment, and begin the deliberate work of reintegration. The storm does not last forever. Waves may crash, but you can build anchors, chart a course, and learn to navigate the currents with awareness and courage. You are broken, but you are reclaiming yourself. Each fragment is part of your strength. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. You realize now that what you called love was never truly love. The words, the gestures, the fleeting warmth, they were transactions, not connections. A partner who praised you while quietly bending your boundaries. A friend who offered comfort only when it served them. The difference is subtle, almost invisible when you are immersed in the moment, but undeniable in hindsight. Authentic connection nourishes the soul. It respects, it uplifts, it allows breathing space. Manipulation, by contrast, drains, twists, and constrains. The reality check is sharp, but liberating. Your pain is not proof of weakness. Your heartbreak is not evidence of failure. It is evidence that you engaged deeply, that you sought genuine intimacy in a world that sometimes disguises need as affection. Recognizing the truth detaches guilt from self-worth. You can look back and see the transactional nature of the interactions without feeling defective. The calm, firm recognition is the first step toward freedom. What happened to you was never a reflection of your value, but a reflection of another's unmet needs and manipulative choices. The illusion begins to dissolve like morning mist over jagged cliffs. You remember the smiles, the promises, the whispered "I care," and you see them now in sharper clarity. What once seemed protective now appears strategic. The warmth you felt was selective, conditional, often absent when most needed. The cinematic moment is powerful. A fog lifts, revealing a rugged landscape, jagged and raw, yet illuminated. You feel relief, not in anger, but in clarity. Your memories no longer ensnare you. The betrayal is stark, but it no longer haunts like a ghost in the dark. Recognition transforms anguish into insight. You begin to perceive the subtle cues you ignored, the patterns that previously trapped you, and the lessons embedded in every encounter. The pain remains, but its hold loosens. Liberation lies in seeing the architecture of deceit for what it truly was, structured, patterned, and entirely outside the sphere of your inherent worth. Empathy without enmeshment is your next evolution. Understanding that a manipulator acts from their own void does not excuse their actions, but it allows you to stop internalizing blame, their need for control, their strategic emotional pulls, their exploitation. They originate in their shadow, not yours. In modern life, this is crucial. You see a friend post selfies of generosity while quietly taking from others. A partner masks their selfishness behind charm. A co-worker praises while undermining. To empathize is to recognize the brokenness in another, yet maintain boundaries. You can feel compassion for the human struggle without surrendering your peace. You are no longer the canvas for their projection, no longer complicit in your own diminishment. Empathy becomes a tool, not a trap. It allows you to navigate interactions with awareness, to respond with discernment, and to reclaim autonomy. This separation is not coldness, it is clarity, strength, and an essential act of self-preservation. The past, reframed, is no longer a chain, but a guidepost. The experiences you endured were never indictments of your capacity to love or your ability to trust. They were lessons in seeing clearly, in discerning between light and illusion. Each encounter teaches the architecture of false affection, the patterns of manipulation, and the boundaries necessary to protect your heart. The cinematic truth is simple. What once shackled you now illuminates the path forward. You are not broken. You are awake. You can carry empathy, connection, and love with wisdom, untainted by illusions that once deceived you. The liberation is complete when you recognize that you were never at fault, and the love you seek is real, deliberate, and mutual. See clearly, love wisely, and let false illusions fall away. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung. You stand at the edge of yourself, staring into the darkness you once denied. The shadow, the collection of fears, doubts, and suppressed anger, is no longer a distant echo. It waits, patient, reflective, testing your courage. Integrating the shadow is not comfortable. It is raw, intense, and transformative. You must face the impulses you once ignored, the jealousy you buried, the insecurities you masked. Each suppressed emotion has shaped choices, drawn certain people, and dictated patterns in ways you did not consciously command. Jung understood that only by acknowledging these hidden facets can you reclaim authority over your life. The cinematic moment is fierce, confronting the hidden corners of your psyche, feeling the tremor of fear, yet refusing to retreat. Modern life mirrors this struggle. The anxiety you hide from colleagues, the resentment you suppress with friends, the self-doubt you mask in relationships, all shadows you must meet to regain your clarity and power. Confrontation is the first step. Recognition of recurring patterns, honest reflection on triggers, and naming the parts of self previously denied. These are the tools of integration. Each acknowledgement chips away at unconscious control, transforming vulnerability into insight, chaos into awareness. Boundaries are the armor you forge in fire. Awareness alone is not enough. The shadow's influence must be met with action. Saying no, refusing to tolerate disrespect, and asserting what you will and will not accept is not aggression. It is reclamation. Imagine standing in molten heat, hammering steel into a shield. Each affirmation, each refusal strengthens your psychological and emotional armor. The world will test it. Colleagues will push limits, friends will challenge your patience, partners will probe your tolerance. Yet a boundary firmly held is an act of sovereignty, a statement that you will no longer be pulled into manipulation or drained by false affection. In everyday life, this might mean declining emotional labor you did not consent to, refusing to respond to passive-aggressive demands, or stepping away from relationships that consistently harm. The cinematic truth: boundaries are not walls, they are gates controlled by you. They allow protection without hostility, clarity without conflict. They are forged in fire, yes, but worn with strength, dignity, and awareness. Inner authority transforms all. With shadow integrated and boundaries set, you reclaim sovereignty over your choices. You decide consciously, without the invisible strings of unprocessed fear or old wounds tugging at you. Modern life presents endless pressures. The expectation to please, the fear of confrontation, the subtle manipulation in personal and professional spaces. Yet when you wield inner authority, these pressures no longer dictate your behavior. Decisions are deliberate. Actions are measured. Reactions are intentional. You do not flinch at criticism, nor do you bend to unearned guilt. The cinematic metaphor is commanding. A lone figure at the helm of a storm-tossed ship, steering with precision while waves crash around, unshaken. Fear is acknowledged, not erased. Power is exercised, not abused. Sovereignty becomes a lived experience, each choice reinforcing autonomy, each boundary reinforcing identity, each reflection reinforcing clarity. You move with purpose, grounded in self-knowledge, attuned to your shadow yet no longer enslaved by it. This is the essence of empowerment: shadow met, boundaries forged, inner authority claimed. The process is not instantaneous. Integration requires patience, courage, and deliberate action. You will stumble, falter, and feel old fears rise, but each confrontation strengthens resilience. Each assertion, no matter how small, is a strike against the chaos that once dictated your life. Modern examples abound, choosing not to reply to manipulative messages, standing firm in negotiations without fear of conflict, refusing to give emotional labor to those who exploit. These acts, though subtle, compound into a psychological revolution. The cinematic rhythm, one step at a time, hammer striking steel, shadow met with insight, boundaries drawn with precision, inner authority asserted with unwavering resolve. The ultimate power is knowing you are the architect of your life. The shadow is no longer a tyrant, but a teacher. The armor protects without hardening, the boundaries safeguard without isolation, and the inner authority transforms fear into deliberate control. You are awake, you are sovereign, you navigate the world, not as a passive participant, but as a conscious creator of your own destiny. The liberation is profound, no longer reactive, no longer ensnared, no longer giving away power. The shadow informs, the boundaries protect, the self commands. Meet your shadow, forge your boundaries, and rule your inner world. Even a wounded soul can choose the sun. Carl Jung. Peace is not surrender. It is deliberate, conscious strength. You have learned to recognize the shadows that once pulled you into chaos, the manipulations that once drained your energy, the patterns that left your heart fractured. Choosing peace is standing firm while the storm rages, refusing to be swept into old dynamics. Modern life constantly tempts you to react, to engage in petty battles, to seek validation where it is not offered. But you have seen the cost. The serenity you claim now is power in its purest form, calm, unshakable, and rooted in awareness. You do not need to prove yourself to those who exploit, nor bend to their demands. Your silence is a boundary. Your detachment is a declaration. This is mastery. The quiet but potent act of choosing your energy, your focus, and your emotional freedom over the chaos that once dictated your life. Patterns that once trapped you begin to dissolve. You recognize the signs of manipulation, the subtle pulls of false comfort, the triggers rooted in old wounds. You respond differently now. A colleague who once leaned on your compliance is met with firm clarity. A friend who once exploited your empathy now encounters boundaries that cannot be crossed. A partner who once drew power from your vulnerability now faces the unyielding strength of self-knowledge. The cinematic image is vivid. Dawn breaking over a land once shadowed and scorched, revealing contours of reclaimed terrain. Rivers flowing freely, light illuminating paths previously hidden. The repetitive cycles of exploitation are broken not through confrontation alone, but through awareness, reflection, and intentional choice. Each decision, each boundary, each act of self-respect reshapes your world. Healthier relationships grow where fear once ruled, and the psychological landscape shifts from survival to sovereignty. Looking forward, vigilance and self-respect guide you. You do not step into the world with armor forged from anger, but with clarity born of understanding. The future is a horizon of conscious decisions, deliberate connections, and discerned intimacy. You carry lessons from the past without carrying its weight. Your heart is open, but informed. Your trust is given, but not blindly. The cinematic metaphor is simple and luminous. A figure walking steadily into sunlight, aware of shadows behind but undistracted, carrying only what strengthens and nourishes. Forward vision is your gift, the ability to meet life fully awake, neither naive nor hardened, choosing serenity over chaos, freedom over fear, and self-respect over compromise. Walk into your light, hold your peace, and let the shadows fall behind.